So, I did not do a Monday Night Raw after show, and I apologize for that. So, for your sake, I am going to do this show or this video for you to give you guys my thoughts as to where we are in terms of Monday Night Raw and where I think we could have been had things been done a little bit differently. So, let's talk about Gunther. Gunther is out there again gloating and feeling like he's on a high because he beat AJ Styles with a good low blow, which cheapens him as a villain, if you ask me. I feel like if you were gonna do that, then let it be like on a technicality of some sort. Like you're making Gunther look like he's a coward, like he is unable to fight for some reason, or he simply is too afraid to. And I just don't understand the logic behind it, because Gunther's the one who had all of the momentum, right? He's the one who has been going, who's been consistently going the distance, whereas his counterparts like John Cena or whatever have had very big highs and extremely big lows, whereas Gunther's on the other side of that. So I'm not quite understanding the idea of what's going on with Gunther, but I can tell you now, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I do believe that he was the right person to handle John Cena's retirement with the way that it went down. I do believe that, because I feel like how they booked it, if anybody else had did it, it would have killed their careers. Whereas Gunther was able to lean into it fully. Um, Here's a different way I would have done that. So, because you have the Vision as the top faction on the show for Raw right now, right? And you're not going to have that title circling anywhere else besides the top guys on your show and the Vision, okay? And you consider Braun Breaker one of those guys for right now. It doesn't look like the situation is going to shift in any other direction, like, say, a Penna getting the championship or something like that. It looks like it's always going to circle around specific people, which is fine. Do your worst or do whatever makes you happy. But since Braun Breaker is one of your guys that you seem to be so high on, then why didn't you pick him? Because it would make much more plausible sense to have him be the guy, and then you move into the space of letting Braun Breaker go into the title scene, and that way it would work out. It also would lend some nastiness to the feud between CM Punk and their whole thing. I think that it wasn't well thought out. They didn't think it through, because Gunther isn't going to be circling any title anytime soon, because they're going to give that championship to Braun Breaker. So, having thought about this, I feel like they should have went that route. I stand by what I said before. Even in my emotions and my anger about it, I still think that Gunther was the right guy. But if you're gonna have Braun Breaker circling this title the way that he has, you could have used that to your advantage and killed two birds with one stone. That would have boosted Braun Breaker, and Braun Breaker could have been he could have recovered from the backlash of it and relished in it. This would have given extreme high heat to the Vision. It would have also made them persona non grata. Like, they would have been the heels of the year with the way that this would have worked out. But I don't know. I feel like, hmm, I'm not a fan of the way that they're booking Gunther at the current moment. I'm not a fan of the idea of what's happening. It just makes Gunther look slimy, and I've known Gunther to be anything but that. I mean, he's a dick, don't get me wrong, but his character work doesn't have to be the slimy, weaselly villain of all that. He doesn't have to do all of that. But anyways, AJ Styles came out, begged for another match, and of course, Gunther put all the power in his hands. He essentially said that if he is going to do this, then you have to put your career on the line at the Royal Rumble. And AJ Styles agreed later on in the night. So it's going to be AJ Styles versus Gunther at the Saudi show, because Royal Rumble is in Riyadh this year. So we're going to move on to the next one, which I believe it was Maxine versus Becky Lynch. This one had me in a bit of a conundrum because it seemed to come out of nowhere which I feel like you could have just let Maxine lose clean, but the heel turn and everything. But let me explain. So Maxine was facing off against Becky Lynch and wanted to get her Intercontinental Championship back. This is where I feel like WWE kind of steps on their own toes a bit. And I'm going to explain that in a second. Maxine ended up going up against Becky and she lost due to Natalia's interference. For whatever reason, Natalia wanted to be at ringside with her, claiming it was because of what happened last week. And it was just stupid. I was just like, why are you here? And she was in full gear. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then when you look at what she did, Becky lost this match. Maxine had this match won. Becky was out. Becky had tried to use underhanded tactics again. They worked against her, and she ended up busting her head on the turnbuckle that she exposed. And then Becky was right next to the ropes. Maxine pinned her, and that's when Natalya put her foot on the ropes. The referee pops up so damn fast when she put her foot on the ropes. It was wild how quickly he did it because it was literally seconds after she put her foot on the rope. And I'm like, So it was pretty funny, I what happened after this was an onslaught of ass whippings from Natalya to uh Maxine, and she was asking like why are you doing this, just asking her question after question after question after question, trying to figure out like what is going on, why are you doing this to me, what is the issue. And all you kept hearing Natalya say was that you're pathetic, you're weak, all this other kind of stupid shit. And she beat the brakes off of the girl. She got pulled from her with the referee pulled her from pulled her off of her, got her off the girl, and then all of a sudden she starts trying to beat her up again. Runs back in the ring and beats her up again while she's still in the ring. Ridiculousness. I've never seen or heard of anything like that at all. Okay. Now, look, I'm all for a good story. Okay. But I need one that makes sense to me. And I know they're going to have Natalya come out probably next week, cut a promo about how Maxine lost the title and she was terrible or blah, blah, blah. And to me, that's just not good enough. That's not going to cut it anymore. I need you to do your due diligence, do the work, take the steps to build the story, then make the execution of the heel turn, and then proceed forward with whatever you're going to do. Because this could have been done while Maxine was still champion. Maxine should have won the first match with Becky Lynch and then lost it to Becky this time. And then you could have done it that way. Instead, you did this ass backwards shit and it just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. I feel like you could have let Maxine keep that title until Royal Rumble, and then she could have dropped it to Natalya. You could have started a feud with her and Natalya, then dropped that title to Natalya, and then Becky Lynch could have been still clamoring to get back at the title. Or after Raquel gets done with Stephanie Vaquer, she could have then gone after Stephanie, which would have given Stephanie a solid feud with her championship. Because as much as I love Stephanie Vaquer, she has not had a solid challenger for her title. Raquel, I give her some chops, but I also think that feud between the two of them is less than what it could be, and it's not worthwhile because you got too many variables running around. The first aspect of the feud could have been a solo dolo one-on-one, but you chose to keep adding in Nikki Bella for whatever fucking reason. Don't get it, never will. Then you finally get them by themselves and you just wait till the girl is injured to do a nasty attack on her. It just doesn't make sense. The way that this is being set up for everybody is not making any sense. At least not logically to me. We're going to move on because it just keeps getting worse from here on out. So after that, we saw that, of course, Liv Morgan and everybody were very excited about what Judgment Day was going to be doing in 2026. And Liv Morgan was talking about how, she's very excited. They're about to get their titles back. It's about to be a celebration for the Judgment Day. And then she changed her tune and went over to Raquel and was like, "You're about to be champion. Roxanne, I know you and I weren't the best of friends. I thought you were a liar and a snake. But I see that you are actually down for the cause and you're my friend." And la 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 la. And I was like, girl. Okay, girl. Then she turned to Finn and she was like, "Finny, you got this. We know you got this." And Finn was like, "Girls, you're about to see something new. We about to come back. I'm going to be champ. You going to be tag team champ. And Raquel going to be the big dog. Judgment Day is going to be collect and go." And I ain't going to lie. I believed him because I really wanted Finn to win. And it wasn't because I hate Judgment Day. But because obviously I don't really give a shit about what Judgment Day gets. But I like Finn Balor. And I really think that 10 years is way too long for a former champion to be close enough to the title. That's not right. And Finn has done his due diligence long enough. It feels like he's been punished long enough. He shouldn't have been punished to begin with. He's an excellent wrestler and he's one of the best people back there to tell the story if you want to talk about resurgence and really going in a different direction. And it just doesn't work when you're not really putting in the effort. And I think the biggest problem here is not putting in the effort. You're not using the people who really have the charisma and the shine to do what they need to do to bolster the company, but also to get people back into wrestling. And Finn is one of those people. Yes, he's older, but you could use Finn Balor to bring in other guys and to make this really worthwhile, especially guys of his caliber, his size, and his ability. I mean, this is a different conversation, so we'll stop right here. But he believed in himself and he was ready to go. All throughout the night, you got some significant vignettes. We got stuff from, of course, they talked to Finn Balor about his match with CM Punk, and CM Punk also talked about his match with Finn Balor. And both men bigged up each other and gave each other respect, but they also made it very clear that they were here to take belts and dominate, and they weren't going to hold back on each other simply because they had respect for each other. It was about domination and titles, and that's just it. Now, the main storyline on Monday Night Raw is, of course, the faction known as the Vision and their resentment of authority. Last week, we saw they took all their frustrations of Braun Breaker losing the championship match out on the luchadors in terms of Penta, Dragon Lee, and Rey Mysterio. Quite frankly, they had attacked them first, constantly coming after them. If they said anything, they were going after them. And so to see them retaliate the way that they did, I was like, big ups to you, respect. But they wouldn't have come out there if the Vision hadn't come out there to try to run interference for Braun Breaker, who we saw said prior that he didn't need any help and that he wanted '09 CM Punk out there because he knows that that's the guy that he wants to be. He doesn't want this old man, friendly, smiling old man. He wants the guy who's going to give him all the smoke. And well, he got that. And because he realized that the walls were closing in, that's when the Vision came down there, which to me, you lose your credibility of being a dominant force, of being the guy. You lose your credibility when you do that. But it is what it is. He's now upset and in his feelings and attacking everybody. You kind of brought this on yourself, though, bro. You did all that bragging, all that talking, all that hollering and screaming. And then all of a sudden, when it came down to you actually having to put in some work to do something, little Bronny got scared. And then all of a sudden, your homeboy's coming down there to save your ass. It's very interesting. Anywhoosies, we saw that Adam Pearce made it very clear to the boys that, he was having a great day. And of course, Paul Heyman was befuddled. He said, "What do you mean you're having a great week? He said, I'm having a great week. Things are going great for me. Brian Breaker's at home where he belongs, and we're at a new city. We're out here in Belfast. We're having a great time. Why would you think I wouldn't have a great day? And he was like, well, after the phone call you received, I would imagine that you wouldn't. And I told you that bureaucracy works in their favor when it needs to. See, Paul Heyman put in the little bug, right? And when he called initially, and that didn't work. But then when they had this match with Penta, Dragon Lee, and Ray, and they had the remaining three members of Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, and Austin Theory in this match, it made it pretty simple how things were going to play out. You see, Paul Heyman's character is anything other than is pretty much everything predictable in this particular day and age. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else, but I see right through you, bro. I knew that he was going to use the bureaucracy against Adam Pearce, which he ended up doing because Adam Pearce played right into his hands. And I don't think, even in character, I don't think Adam understood exactly what was going on. As soon as he said that you put your hands on him first, my immediate mind was, I see where this is going to go. The only way this is going to work out the way that it should is you got to tie Adam Pearce's hands. And so after this Monday, which basically what happened is they had the match, he was ringside, he was enjoying the match as everybody else was, and then Paul Heyman got involved. Adam got up there and told Paul Heyman to get off the apron and get out of the match. This also led to quite a bit of distraction, which allowed Logan Paul to give those brass knuckles to Austin Theory, I believe. Once Theory had the knuckles, Adam saw it, ran around to the other side of the ring, took the knuckles, and that's when Paul was like, what are you doing? You're interfering. Why are you here? Yada, 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 yelling and screaming. And he says, well, what's this? Paul's like, I don't know, but you're not supposed to be holding him. You're not supposed to be in this match. And then this led to enough distraction to allow the luchadors to get the W over the Vision. Now, of course, this didn't sit well with Paulina. We're at ringside, and Paul is texting and calling people ringside during the match. After the match was over. So as the show progresses on a little bit later, we see that Paul Heyman has gotten through to somebody because somebody has ended up calling Adam Pearce. And Adam Pearce has decided to invite Braun Breaker to Monday Night Raw next week to have a conversation, man to man, one on one. Paul Heyman was like, you better be on your best behavior. And it just seemed very, very eerily childish. However, that is what we have going on with the Vision and, of course, the Authority on Monday Night Raw. It looks like we're going to be in the midst of a regime change very soon, which could cause quite a bit of a shakeup for people. It's been a while for as a face GM has been running it. So a heel GM would only cause more chaos, but of course, people love a good chaotic moment. With that being said, let's move on to the next match. Now, speaking of Liv Morgan and her cronies, the tag team champions Rhea and Io came out to talk about their match at Saturday Night Main Event, which is Saturday. And they decided that they were going to, talk about how they're going to win. And they declared themselves both for the Royal Rumble. Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez came out and basically shattered that and was like, well, both of you can't win the Rumble, so how's that going to work? And then they too declared for the Rumble and made it very clear that they will no longer be tag team champions by Saturday. And then Rhea made it clear the same way. She was like, well, girl, if it's not going to be cool for us to be both in the Royal Rumble and vying for the Royal Rumble win, then how is it going to work for y'all? Because it's three of y'all, and only one of y'all can win the Rumble. So how's that going to work? And then that's when big ass Raquel come in there, and they all three beat down Rhea and Io. It's getting very old. Same tactics, same bullshit. And it's just like, girl, okay. we get it. You're the Judgment Day. Can we move on from this? I'm tired. I think Roxanne being in this group is pigeonholing her. I also think that that cuts down the women's division and who can compete for that women's championship. I also think that this group is also beating down Raquel. I'm not going to lie, I don't mind Raquel Rodriguez, but the reality is this group doesn't benefit her in any way, shape, or form. All of a sudden now she wants to be one of the top girls and be actual champ. And I know that sticks in Liv Morgan's craw because at some point you gotta decide as to what you want to do. Are you trying to be champion or are you trying to help your girl remain champion? I don't know. Anyways, we're moving on. Now, Javon Evans was facing off against El Grande Americano. He already faced off against Rayo and the other guy. I don't know what they call the other guy. I don't remember. But he already faced off against those two and won the match. However, in this match, Javon Evans got injured and the match ended up getting stopped, and there was no definitive winner in terms of an actual pin. The win ended up going to El Grande Americano due to the stoppage. It was like a technicality win, if you want to put it that way. They stayed in character and played it off like you're obviously inadequate, and those wins over my guys were flukes, and I'm just a better wrestler than you. And he's like, there goes you're exposed. I told you he was a shit. You know what I'm saying? Basically like that. From how they were caring for Javon Evans, it looked like there was something wrong with his shoulder, but apparently the issue backstage was concussion. They wanted to make sure that Javon wasn't concussed, so they ended the match to, give him a concussion protocol to make sure he was all right. And apparently he is 100% okay. He has been cleared and he will continue the rest of the European tour all the way to Royal Rumble. Rumble is almost a week away. Woo, child. Anyways, final match of the night. The final match of the night went to CM Punk and um, Balor. Balor came out to his OG entrance music and it was so good. It was so loud in there, he almost missed the cue. And I was like, damn, Balor, has it been that long? You haven't been able to do it that long? So he had that, and it was a solid matchup between the guys. Although Balor lost, he put on a great showing, and I don't know if that shows promising for him to be champion sometime this year, but it definitely should. I wanted him to win. I was sad that he didn't, but of course, they are going to stay the course with the story that they have. It's very interesting how they operate when it comes to Seth Rollins and his stories or stories that are different from other people's. Because when you look at how they did John Cena's story and the pivots they did, the changes they did mid story with him, it's crazy, but they're still going the course with this storyline with Seth, CM Punk, Braun Breaker, and everybody else who's involved. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. That was Monday Night Raw. There really wasn't a lot going on. We did see a couple of snippet vignettes. We saw Bayley and Lyra Valkyria talk about their tag team matchup, how they started the year off on a loss, and how they're going to be proceeding forward. Both of them are going to be in the Rumble this year, and they both have declared that they don't care who wins, but they would rather be one of them. So they're very excited for each other. And we also saw Jay Uso. He was minus his big bro. He was out there this week to declare himself for the Royal Rumble this year, seeing as how he was last year's winner. Declaring for the Royal Rumble is a big deal. So, with that being said, I thought we were going to have a tag team match, but something must have happened with Jim, and he wasn't able to get overseas in time, or he's not on the overseas tour this time. I don't know what it is. It could be because his wife is pregnant or whatever the case may be, but it is what it is. So, y'all, that is it for Monday Night Raw. Was I overly entertained by it? It was okay. It was an okay show. I want them to deep dive further. I want you guys to also take heed that today we're going to be live over on Down for the Count. We're going to be talking about the state of WWE, the things that we like, the things that we don't, the changes that are being made to fix some of those things. But it's going to be Midwest Melanin Mafia over there today. So we're going to be talking about a lot. We're also going to address the Trey Miguel situation and talk about it, not to excess, but to understand and kind of get a clear view of what's happening here. But make sure you guys come on over there. I'm going to be putting us up over there live, so you don't have to worry about missing anything. It is going to be during NXT, so be mindful of that. But y'all make sure y'all rate, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I apologize for not coming in here sooner and doing this, but I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.